Welcome and thank you for investigating different choices. Today, I'd like to talk about something that affects nearly every homeowner as they approach retirement. Many people spend years building equity in their home, but when it comes time to downsize, they often focus on only one question: where am I going to live? While housing is certainly important, I'd like to suggest there is an even better question: how can my home equity produce more retirement income? That's what this seminar is really about. Today, we're going to look at how the equity from selling a home can become a financial resource that helps generate monthly cash flow throughout retirement. We'll compare different housing choices, look at their long-term financial impact, and explore one option that many people overlook: the cooperative share. My goal isn't to tell you what decision to make. My goal is to give you another way to think about the decision. Now let's discuss that idea. Imagine someone preparing to sell the home they've lived in for many years. They've accumulated a substantial amount of home equity and are beginning to think about the next chapter of retirement. Many people immediately begin asking, which apartment should I rent? But notice the woman on this slide. She's asking a different question. How can I turn my home equity into the most monthly income during retirement? That is a strategic question. She hasn't decided whether she'll rent, purchase a cooperative share, invest in stocks or bonds, or consider other possibilities. Instead, she's stepping back to ask what every investor asks: what's the best use of this money? Once we begin thinking of our home equity as an investment opportunity rather than simply money to spend on housing, entirely new possibilities begin to appear. That's the mindset we'll use throughout the rest of this presentation. Now let's build on that idea. Selling a home creates something very valuable. It creates choices. The workflow shown here begins with selling a home and receiving the equity you've built over many years. From there, one possible strategy is to purchase a cooperative share rather than renting. Why is that important? Because purchasing a share generally requires only part of your available equity. The remaining equity can stay invested and continue working for you by producing interest and dividend income. At the same time, the cooperative's monthly maintenance fee is typically lower than the monthly cost of renting a comparable apartment. Now you have two financial advantages working together. Your remaining investments can help generate income, and your monthly housing expense may be lower. Instead of simply spending your equity, you're putting it to work. That's why I describe a cooperative share as more than housing. It's part of an overall retirement investment strategy. Let's first consider the option that most people naturally think about. You sell your home, you receive your equity, you rent an apartment, you invest the proceeds from the sale. There's certainly nothing wrong with that strategy. In fact, for many people, it may be the right choice. But I'd like you to notice something. At this point, we've really made only a housing decision. We've selected a place to live. What we haven't yet asked is whether another housing choice could improve our overall financial picture. That's where the cooperative share enters the discussion. Instead of assuming renting is the only logical destination after selling a home, we're going to compare it with another option that may reduce monthly housing costs while allowing much of your remaining equity to stay invested. The question is no longer simply, where should I live? The question becomes, which housing choice leaves me with more monthly cash flow throughout retirement? Now let's compare that with a different strategy. The first few steps are exactly the same. You sell your home, you receive your home equity. But here's where the paths begin to separate. Instead of becoming only a renter, you invest part of your equity in a cooperative share. The remainder of your equity can continue to generate investment income. The cooperative shareholder owns all of those things as well, but also owns one additional asset: the cooperative share itself. That is an important distinction. The cooperative share isn't simply another monthly expense. It's an investment that provides housing while potentially lowering monthly housing costs. In other words, you've added another asset to your financial picture instead of simply writing a rent check every month. That difference becomes even more meaningful when we compare the two strategies side by side. Now we're finally in a position to compare the two strategies side by side. Notice that both people begin exactly the same way. They sell their home and receive their home equity. From there, the paths begin to separate. The renter chooses an apartment and invests the remaining equity. The cooperative shareholder purchases a cooperative share and invests the remaining equity. At first glance, those may appear to be similar decisions, but there are two important differences. First, the cooperative shareholder now owns one additional asset, the cooperative share itself. Second, because the monthly maintenance fee is lower than comparable rent, the shareholder keeps an additional $455 every month available for other purposes. That's money that can remain invested, be spent, or simply provide greater financial flexibility. So this comparison isn't really about apartments versus cooperatives. It's about comparing two retirement income strategies. One strategy creates a monthly housing expense. The other combines housing with an investment designed to lower that monthly expense. As we continue, you'll see why that difference becomes increasingly important over time. Let's take a closer look at what those monthly housing costs actually include. When most people compare housing, they often compare only one number, the monthly payment. But that's only part of the story. This comparison looks at everything included in each monthly cost. The cooperative maintenance fee includes items such as a garage parking space, utilities like heating and water, television and internet service, appliance repair and replacement, and a refurbishment program that helps maintain the home over time. If you rent an apartment, many of these items may be additional expenses or may not be included at all. So while the monthly maintenance fee is already lower, the value becomes even greater when you consider everything that's included. The important lesson is this: always compare the total cost of housing, not simply the advertised monthly payment. Once you compare comparable services and amenities, the cooperative maintenance fee often represents significantly greater value than rent alone. Now let's bring all of these pieces together. Suppose you invest $135,000 in a cooperative share. That investment allows your monthly housing cost to be approximately 21% lower than renting a comparable apartment. At the same time, the remaining $175,000 can stay invested. In our example, that investment generates approximately $583 per month in interest income. Combine that investment income with the $455 monthly housing savings, and you've increased your available monthly cash flow by approximately $1,038 every month. That's a meaningful amount of additional retirement income. Here's the key idea. The cooperative share isn't producing income because it pays interest. It's producing income because your investment lowers one of your largest monthly expenses. In effect, your investment is working in two ways. Part of your equity earns interest. The other part reduces your monthly housing costs. Together, they help improve your retirement cash flow. At this point, someone usually raises a very reasonable question. They might say, why not invest all of my home equity and simply rent? That's an excellent question. If someone invested the entire $300,000 at a 4% annual return, they might generate approximately $1,000 each month in investment income. That certainly helps offset the monthly rent. But notice what hasn't changed. The rent is still a housing expense that must be paid every month. Once it's paid, it's gone. The landlord continues earning a profit from that payment. The cooperative strategy approaches the problem differently. Instead of using all of the equity to earn interest, part of the equity is invested in reducing the monthly housing expense itself. That lower housing cost continues month after month. So while investing all of the equity may produce somewhat higher interest income, the cooperative strategy combines investment income with permanently lower housing costs. The result is greater monthly cash flow while still preserving ownership of an important asset. That's why it's helpful to think beyond the interest rate alone and consider the total financial picture. These next two slides may summarize the biggest difference in the entire presentation. Every month, rent leaves your checking account. Once it's paid, it's gone forever. There is nothing left to own, nothing left to sell, nothing left to recover. A cooperative share works differently. The monthly maintenance fee covers the cost of operating the building, but the money you invested to purchase the share remains an asset. Years later, when you decide to move, that share can be sold, subject to market conditions. In other words, your housing investment doesn't simply disappear month after month the way rent does. This is why I encourage people to think of a cooperative share as partially an investment rather than simply a housing expense. The monthly maintenance fee provides housing. The cooperative share remains part of your overall financial assets. That distinction becomes even more meaningful when we begin thinking not about next month, but about the next 10 years. Throughout this presentation, we've talked about today's housing costs, but retirement isn't just about today. It's about the next 10 years, and perhaps the 10 years after that. Many of us enter retirement healthy and active. We enjoy traveling, visiting family, pursuing hobbies, and living independently. But as time passes, our financial needs often change. Healthcare expenses may increase. Prescription costs can become a larger part of the monthly budget. Automobiles eventually need to be replaced. Unexpected repairs and everyday living expenses continue to occur. The question becomes, where will the extra monthly cash flow come from when those needs arise? That's why this slide encourages us to think 10 years ahead. Saving $455 each month isn't simply about spending less today. Over 10 years, those monthly savings can accumulate into a substantial amount of money. And when those savings are combined with the interest generated by your remaining investments, they provide greater financial flexibility later in retirement. None of us knows exactly what the future will bring, but we can prepare ourselves by choosing a strategy that provides more monthly cash flow instead of less. Sometimes the best retirement decisions are the ones that won't fully reveal their value until many years later. By now, I hope you've noticed that we've spent surprisingly little time talking about buildings. Instead, we've talked about retirement. A cooperative share is certainly a place to live. But I believe it's much more than that. It can become part of an overall retirement strategy. It converts home equity into a housing investment. It helps lower monthly housing expenses. It reduces many of the extra costs that renters often pay. It allows more of your monthly income to remain available for the things that truly matter. But retirement isn't measured only in dollars. Many people choose cooperative living because life simply becomes easier. Exterior maintenance is taken care of. Repairs are handled. Amenities are available without additional expense. Neighbors become friends. Social activities happen naturally. Many residents tell me they didn't simply move into another home, they gained peace of mind. As the woman in this illustration suggests, she believes she made the right choice, not only financially, but personally. Because a successful retirement isn't just about having enough money, it's about creating a lifestyle that's enjoyable, comfortable, and easy to maintain. As we prepare to conclude, I'd like to return to the question we began with. Many people compare a cooperative share with an apartment. I would suggest that's the wrong comparison. An apartment is simply one housing option. A cooperative share is both housing and an investment. The better comparison isn't between two places to live. It's between two ways of investing your home equity after you sell your home. One strategy directs your equity toward paying rent month after month. The other uses part of that equity to reduce one of your largest retirement expenses while allowing the remainder to continue generating investment income. Now think back to where you may be 10 years from now. One strategy has produced years of rent payments that can never be recovered. The other has provided lower housing costs while you continue to own a valuable asset. That doesn't mean a cooperative share is the right answer for everyone, but I do believe it's an option that deserves careful consideration whenever someone begins planning for retirement. The important decision isn't simply where you'll live, it's how your home equity can work hardest for you throughout retirement. As we finish today, I'd like to leave you with one final thought. The goal is not to spend less today. The goal is to create more monthly cash flow throughout retirement. Those are two very different objectives. Throughout this presentation, we've explored a strategy that uses home equity in two ways. Part of it remains invested to generate ongoing interest and income. Another part is invested in a cooperative share that helps reduce monthly housing costs. Together, those two decisions may provide greater monthly cash flow than many people expect. Over time, the savings continue, the additional income continues, and the cooperative share remains an asset that you continue to own. Most importantly, this approach encourages us to think beyond today's housing decision and consider the financial impact over many years of retirement. If there's one idea I hope you'll remember, it's this. Your home equity is more than money you've accumulated. It may be one of the most valuable financial resources you'll ever have to help create retirement income. Whether you ultimately choose a cooperative share or another option, I encourage you to ask the right question. How can I make my home equity produce the greatest monthly income throughout retirement? Thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate your attention, and I hope this presentation has given you a new perspective on retirement planning.